So first of all, we'll start, but I want to unofficially start by thanking the executive committee and the Academic Center for a delightful dinner the other night. I thought it was very, very, very well done. I think everybody had a great time. The tape is rolling, or else I'd say something like the tequila shots are really good. But it was really a nice event, so thank you for that. I had one.
I got a great
and you are great in
yeah.
Yeah, you did a good job. And you dressed up nicely too, by the way. You look good in your suit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, with that said, I'll call the meeting to order. And do we have the minutes of the April 22nd meeting? We do. They're attached. And so we're at least 4 sets behind. Do we know on minutes?
Are we?
This is April. So I get so we are current. Everything's been approved up until now. Gotcha. Okay, thank you, Maria.
Yeah, everything's
good. Okay. So do I have a motion on these, or what's the pleasure of the group?
There's a couple of, there's a something like to incorporate. Last page, page 3, under IT issues, Lancer Point, the third line says Dr. Cynthia Olive.
Thank you.
New name. Thank you. Okay. And
you can go with it.
Yeah, Olive Tree is my last name, actually.
And then on page 2, first, second, third, fourth paragraph, after the second line, after a research document, you need to, if you could please include E-Cairo disagreed with Leslie Terrapelli's statement, and that the D faculty would counter her points.
So E-Cairo disagreed with Leslie's
statement,
and the DE faculty would
counter the points.
Would counter her points.
And then, yeah, so that was all.
Okay, so Maria's busily writing. I'll let her finish, make sure she's got it.
And then a question, simply, and then the same page, second paragraph, 1, 2, 3, about the 5th line reads, Katie Dackel would return to 100%, would like full-time faculty release time person working collectively with campus-wide distance education committee. I don't know what that sentence means.
Well, she's technically not released because she's a non-instructional faculty member. That's just her regular assignment.
So what are we trying to say here?
Let's just take it out then.
Take it out?
I'm sorry, where is it?
If
nobody knows what it means.
Well,
the last sentence of distance ed, not first.
Would like to see consistency in strong relation with faculty. Dr. Robert Miller in process of hiring Associate Dean of Online Education. Okay, that's what I said. Katie Datko returned to 100%.
Faculty.
Katie Datko would return to
non-instructional, right?
To a 100%.
She's non-instructional faculty.
Non-teaching faculty,
Non-teaching
I think we'd say. So Katie Datko would return to 100% non-teaching faculty in support of distance education.
There we go. Okay, that makes sense.
Did you get that all, Maria?
Thank you.
Did you? Okay.
I
good.
have it if she didn't.
Okay. So, do we have any other corrections for the minutes? So, what's that word by? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Wait.
I'm sorry. Let's,
I'm concerned about this sentence. Both students immediately will not be able to accomplish all hours. Because I don't
okay,
understand what that means.
so Dr. Scott is looking at the cosmetology, second paragraph from second paragraph from the bottom on page 2, cosmetology. To start considering close bringing from short-term due to general factors, we could notice next week at board meeting CEC not best place for program when it comes to storefront curriculum must space available. Program requires students complete specific number of hours. Will advise students meeting as they may not be able to accomplish all hours within. So you're saying that last sentence should be struck or doesn't?
Right. All the current students will be finishing in mid-July. So the sentence, they may not be able to accomplish all hours. That isn't.
It's inaccurate.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you did say they're going to finish.
Yeah, so
Right,
we'll
yeah.
take that out.
So we're just going to kill the last sentence?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, delete the last sentence. Are there any other corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, announcements. This is the John, no, announcements. Anybody have any announcements?
And note, these are announcements not for
Agenda.
a deliberation or anything like that. Just to let people know if you have anything that you wanted to throw out there. Like last time when I congratulated Pat on her retirement.
Oh, well. Well, we would like to talk about how to get 60/30 on the May 20th agenda. We're not quite sure for the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Is it somehow that can come up in the conversation?
Well, you could give that as an announcement.
Is that an announcement?
You can announce that you would really like to see that. And
Oh, I see. That's just, well, I'd rather say more than that.
Well,
we just can't deliver
it also can
things.
come into 12,
12?
accreditation response.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good.
So let's
So
do
let's
that.
hold
on
it for
12.
12. Okay.
I do have an announcement regarding commencement. So I will be preparing the email right now to send to faculty about submission of grades. And I'll also remind them, for those that have signed up for commencement, what time to line up and where, and that we have a rainy day plan. So I'll make sure to communicate
What is that,
that.
umbrellas?
The rainy day plan is that we will use Sexton Auditorium, and each graduate will be able to bring just a maximum of 2 guests. And then we'll use C333, which is a lecture hall, and the lecture hall in the art gallery, or art building rather, for overflow. So family members can go to the overflow rooms, and faculty, we will also all go to overflow rooms to allow for the Sexton Auditorium seats to go to the students and their guests.
And you can stream it live in other rooms?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have a 3-camera setup in there, so we'll do that.
Do you want to announce those 2 recognitions that we got that you forwarded out about persistence in the veterans?
Oh, yes. If you're on my Facebook feed, you would have seen that we were awarded 2 recognitions, and one of them is for the best school for Latinos, and the second is the best school for veterans. So we're in the top for both categories.
Veterans was second in the nation.
Second
right?
in the nation. Yeah.
And there's actually a third one too, is that of all the 112 community colleges, we were recognized in 2013-14 as the #1 first-year retention college as well. So we have the highest percentage of students who stayed after their first year.
Yeah.
So that's quite an honor too. And that really ties back to the first-year experience program and the things that we're doing there. So that was good.
Who's first with the veterans?
Someone in Texas.
Out of state.
Out of state?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're #1 in California.
Okay.
Those Texas people.
I know.
Real patriotic there, you know.
Any further announcements? Okay, thank you. So let's go on to public comments on non-agenda items. Does anybody from the public care to speak?
Yes,
Ani and then Patty.
thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. About 2 weeks ago, there was an email sent out, excuse me, about some release time opportunities in the college. And one in particular was the new faculty orientation coordinator, and it just had one person's name down there. The last several years, there has been 2 new faculty coordinators. And I know the Senate was talking about 2 yesterday. And Patty and I are here to request 3 new faculty coordinators. And with so many new faculty, 36 plus, because we know 36, but more may be added because now that we know who the retirements are, there may be some that have to be filled. And we want to make sure there are enough coordinators to guide the new faculty, take care of their needs. And we know that we're there to be informed about the culture, technology, pedagogy, teaching techniques, shared governance, and accreditation responsibilities. And the last 2 years, there have been 2 people. That was Sheila Rose and Beverly Tate. And the new hires in the last few years, 3 years ago, there were 11 people hired. 2 years ago, there were 9 people hired. And then last year, there were 14. So now we've got 3 to 4 times more people that have to be accommodated as new faculty. And we want to have enough personnel in place to serve them and whatever their needs may be. And of course, it's like 1 semester or a year. I don't know how long this goes. If it's 1 year or 2. I mean, 1 semester or 2. But it would be whatever the need will be. Like if the need next year goes back down to 9, then you don't need 3 people. But I don't know what the future looks like with new hires. And with that also, there's this person these people are asked to orient the adjuncts. And if with 36 new people, that's 10% of the faculty. So if you take 10% of the adjunct, there'll be 90 people. And that need to be oriented. And there could be more, because with all the retirees, each of them has approximately 5 classes, so it's 5 adjunct times 20-something. So that'll be, a tremendous number of adjuncts that will need to be oriented. And so these are some of the reasons that we request 3 new faculty orientation coordinators with 20% release time each for this year. And I want to pass this down.
I think in addition, what we'd like to say is that we would like to give the new faculty an opportunity to get oriented to PCC and to begin to share in some of the shared governance activities that they can be a participant of. They cannot vote in some instances, but they still could be a member of the committee and help us begin to vote on some of the paths for the recommendations.
Okay, very good.
Are there any questions you have that we can?
So since this is a public comment on non-agenda item, we'll have to agendize this.
Or refer it.
Which item could we refer to?
No, what I mean is you could refer it out to something other than Capm if there's already a group working on it.
Well, there is a group working on it, but I'm not sure. I mean, does Capm want to discuss it? Or do we just want to, we've heard it and then we've got the Professional Development Committee and others that are working on these things. So
Well, we could actually discuss it today under number 9, or we could discuss it under reassigned time under 5A. Both of those are fitting.
5A, that would be fitting.
okay, so we'll discuss it under 5A.
Do you need us to stay, or would you like to ask us some questions now?
I don't know if we need them to stay or not. I think we kind of get the point, but you're welcome to
I
stay.
have finals about this
Yeah,
side. I'm
yeah.
sure everyone else does too.
Yeah, so
Waiting
unless you're certainly welcome to stay, we'll be at 5A soon.
Now, it's the next
Yeah,
item.
yeah. Unless there's further public comment. Any further public comment?
Julie, are you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Julie.
The faculty would like to thank the district for partnering in the fantastic evening on Friday night.
Thank you. It was really, it was a nice event. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Any other public comment?
We're good.
All right, so let's go to 5A.
To allow them to get back to the stack, do you guys want to discuss the NFI issue first?
Oh, yes.
And then get to your charts, Kathy?
And then he's
Your faculty
back
needs to.
to.
Oh,
Yeah, he threw a new acronym. in.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Where did that one come from?
She was looking at me like, budget?
I don't understand this. It must have something to do with
So
fiscal.
let me, I'll start the conversation by just basically asking the question. Where are we now in terms of release time? What were we thinking of? What was it advertised for, percentage of release time?
It was one person at 20, based on the discussion we had at the last Capm.
Right.
I am in agreement that it should be more than 1, because people need to be able to talk and work together and collaborate, and that's a big responsibility for one person to be in charge of creating the orientation for 36 people.
Right.
And it's
We agreed Monday night.
Oh,
There was a
okay.
strong feeling in the Senate
Okay.
that that was true.
A good example that was given at the Monday's meeting is that in terms of the curriculum, there might be, for example, Canvas training, and some faculty might already have that Canvas training already. They don't need to go to it. So there was the discussion that while some faculty could be obtaining, could go have their Canvas training, other faculty could be doing a different type of training. So amongst the different coordinators, they can be dividing up the workload and taking them to different workshops at the same time.
Right.
So-
Not to mention the fact we don't have a computer lab that holds 36 people.
Yeah.
So there's another problem.
So now, okay, so there's agreement that 60%, 3 would make sense. Of the 3, I don't have an answer on this right now, but of the 3, is somebody in charge, absent a program or a professional development coordinator or director.
But we haven't seen what has come in. They're due on Friday.
So the idea would be is that the three, okay, at least initially the idea could be that the three people would work as equal partners and collaborate in this, as opposed to a lead of the three being a lead person. I see.
I think so.
The collaborative approach, and then you would break the tie if ever there were ties.
Well, and I'd like to see that.
How's there a tie with three?
The chair of the faculty development committee should have a role in this as well. And I haven't asked her, so this, but we have someone in the CTE area doing professional development who we're already paying. It's a grant-funded, non-instructional. I think it's grant-funded.
You talking about Shannon?
Yeah. Where she's been doing a lot of work on experiential learning and that kind of thing. But we could have her be part of it, or at least maybe collaborate a little bit, and it wouldn't cost us anything.
So why don't we, if this makes sense, let's just agree that 60% makes sense.
But I haven't talked to her, so.
So 320s make sense. You'll take that under advisement. You'll talk with whomever the three eventually turn out being.
Yeah, I don't even know how many people have applied. I have no idea.
It hasn't been flown.
Yeah, it has.
It has been flown, but for
I
only
think
one
it's
position.
due.
But for only one
For
position.
one.
Right.
So
But we could agree to expand it to 3.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see the depth of the pool, Julie.
Just from a workload perspective,
Yeah.
how much release will those two folks given this year and last year?
Beverly Tate and Sheila Rose.
Beverly, let's see.
You got one's a tough one because they were doing things other than that as well, right?
It's
For
one of
this
these-
thing.
It should be broken.
For this,
So Beverly got, Beverly had
It's not even in
50% for
here.
college diversity, 50% for basic skills. That's how she was broken down.
Although it's really, but that ended up getting pushed down to 20. So it was, she's fully released, but she has 3 tasks: diversity, BSI, and new faculty orientation. So exactly how it came out, I don't know. And then Sheila is in Amy's area. So she's, hers was 30. So I would say that Beverly's was probably about 30, and then Sheila's was
for 14 faculty.
30.
And 9 faculty the year before.
Was that through Apple? That she was at? Sheila? Because the most recent chart I have shows her with Apple, IEC, and Sassy Pathways.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the deal.
And I have these.
Let's don't get hung up on the release time. Let's get hung up on what it takes to get the job done well. Okay? So let's let 3 people be selected for now. Let them get together. Let them work with Kathy, and let them develop a recommendation. It's a very important function, you know, getting faculty up to speed correctly. Ani brings up a good point, and Patty does, regarding the adjuncts. And there is a certain amount of work that has to be done with the adjuncts, I suspect. So let's just don't get hung up on that 60 right now. Let's just say 3 people, and then once there's a plan, we'll figure out what it's going to take to implement the plan.
Plus, it actually might differ depending on who gets selected. So if I were to get selected, I would get 20. If Pat would get selected, she'd get 26.
That's right.
And then someone that teaches
Right.
math would get a higher percentage.
That's correct.
Right.
That's
One
another
class,
good point, too.
I think.
That's another very good point, too. So I think everybody raises good points here. Let's just say we agree on 3 people, and we'll figure out the release time once we have a plan.
And I will say, I mean, this will be largely dependent on what you see in the pool, but I think it's really important that when you're looking at these issues of training new faculty, that we make sure we have some representation on the student services or student support side. So hopefully you see a counselor or librarian in the mix too. Because they
How
bring
many
a
people
different.
I don't know. It closes Friday,
But again,
and I don't know.
I think a coordinator, not to disagree, Ryan, because I heard what you said and I agree with it, but at the same time, though, we have a collaborative collegial environment, so if somebody is not a counselor or not a librarian, that doesn't mean that the 3 cannot work, you know, collaboratively and appropriately with, you know, other faculty in those areas to do what we need to do. So let's just see what the pool looks like, and then we can kind of figure it out from there.
When would it become? When would they start? Do we know?
Well, there could be, and probably should be, a summer stipend.
Yes, there'll be a stipend.
Yeah, because we were also looking at the person doing Fridays, like every other Friday afternoon during the fall, at least the fall semester, and we hadn't, I don't know if we've made a decision about whether it goes the whole year or not.
Are faculty precluded, let's suppose I do my regular courses and I do my overload? Would I be stipended or just reduced from a 20%?
Okay, I think what you said is if a faculty member maxes out.
I just answered my own question. I just answered my own question.
Okay.
All right, take it back.
Okay. Okay, so do you kind of understand what we're looking at? We're gonna get 3 people. Those 3 people will get together with you and maybe Shannon and whomever else. You'll finalize the plan, and then you will bring back a recommendation to us on the amount of release time that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the hope is to have that coordinator position filled within a month or 2?
Yes, we're flying.
So,
yeah.
So then
The one where it's coming in
director.
on Friday?
Right.
Oh, the PD director.
Yeah.
So then the 3 of them could coordinate with
Yeah,
that person.
the job description is at HR, and I think we made it a fairly high priority, yes?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of positions that have to be hired right now. But I think it was.
That would be ideal to have that person on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, for this group of 36, we're not going to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed in time. So the sooner those 3 people are selected and they get together with Kathy and we start moving on this, the better. Just because before we know it, the middle of August will be here.
Then I'll be submitting to Kathy the curriculum or the topics that the Senate approved yesterday on Monday.
Yes, and that'll all be factored into the puzzle.
And how does that sync with what the Faculty Development Committee, when we met?
Okay. Well, one problem that was raised in the Senate, and I think there was consensus, is that we don't want to just, number one, just overwhelm these new faculty. I mean, it's really hard the first year. I mean, just dealing with just paperwork, your classes, it's an overwhelming task. And the other issue is that, these are really smart people. You've interviewed them. You know they are. Yeah. And so I'm not sure. I think we kind of decided that we don't really need to spend a lot of time on pedagogy because these people, they know these things. And to have them meet every other Friday for a year and then give them kind of work in between, which they had in the proposed curriculum, readings and then work that they had to do on the Fridays that they weren't meeting, it's overwhelming. I think that, and I think, we had pretty much consensus of less pedagogy and less meetings, really.
Right. And then relying on the professional development program now to fill in the gaps so that they get introduced to things through this process they know exists at the college. If they're looking for more in-depth information, they find one of the professional development seminars during the year and they attend that. And that's where they get filled in on the nuts and bolts.
And some of the faculty said as well Monday night that once PD gets going and we have these continual, professional development workshops, a lot of faculty said, well, they'd like to take some of these if we had pedagogy workshops. They might like to take these workshops as well, so they wouldn't just be limited to the new hires. But if we had a continuous, once we get this PD director and we have these workshops going all the time, then that will free everybody to take them. And then it won't be so incumbent on these new hires, to do all this work the first year. We did hear from some new hires, and they were just kind of overwhelmed. They just needed more time to work on their classes, really. I'm sorry, Cynthia.
That's okay. I think what I hear you saying is that we need to build in some nuts and bolts time for new teachers to acclimate just to the operational parts of their instructional assignments. And I hear you about pedagogy, that it might be too overwhelming to introduce that right out of the gate. I would, however, ask that we build in pedagogy because one of the modules that Cecile Davis Anderson and I have worked on over the course of 4 years is addressing non-cognitive or affective issues that arise in the classroom through your instruction. And that does involve adjusting pedagogy so that you're not just covering your expertise, which is your discipline and content, but you're building in other ways for students to, share and feel comfortable and be in the optimal state for learning to occur. So I think that we should, just like we design a syllabus for students, we should design a syllabus for new instructors to have some operational nuts and bolts and then build in the pedagogy piece. I think it'll help them.
And a lot of, they're really quite a diverse group, the ones that we've hired so far. Some have a huge amount of experience and background in pedagogy, and they're very experienced teachers. Some, like in the business area, are coming to us from business with very little experience. So I think they're a mixed group, you know what I'm saying? And some are coming to us without community college experience. And so those affective issues are going to be significant. They don't know what it's like to walk into a community college classroom. So I think it's really important that we keep that in mind. I had hoped that we would, this is just my thing maybe.
That's exciting. That's exciting for the new faculty coordinators to have a group of students who are all from various backgrounds.
Right, and
Community
having 3
college,
people,
industry.
it would be much easier to divide them up into groups or
And so.
And then I was hoping that we could do, we had talked about at some point, doing this thing about creating a welcoming environment and having it be equity focused, and what it can be connected with the syllabi, but how do you create a welcoming environment for our students, which also goes back to the affective. And the only thing about if we had that in the first couple of days, that might have a bearing on how they interact with their students for the first time. So
that could certainly be part of that.
And we have that
we
did have that built in the first 2 days.
And because what I've heard, I kind of agree with everybody here. Not everybody comes to the table with the same level of understanding and preparation. Some of these faculty, many of these faculty, from a pedagogical point of view, they know what they're doing. But many of them have not taught at the community college level, and many of them don't necessarily know what's in their classrooms. But the other thing I advocate for is people self-select. Instead of us being didactic and saying everybody's got to do this, 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 and this, that we respect and celebrate our colleagues for knowing what they know or where they believe they need some assistance. And except for some very, very significant but basic things like what Cynthia said, and that we might want everybody to do, no matter where they are, the rest of it should be sort of, not rest of it, but a lot of it should be optional, because they know what it is that they need. And to the extent that we can provide this menu of options over an extended period of time, eventually everybody do it. And then, as I think Pat said, we have 300 other faculty out there, and they should have the opportunity to participate in these things too. So that's what's great about the whole having the PD policy, having the money behind it, having a director. We can create, like what Canyons has created, and some other schools have created, which is an ongoing professional development institute over the years.
And I think we have to introduce our faculty to some of these ideas, because if they don't know about it, then they're not going to say, then they're not going to select it, or some, I think they need an introduction to some of the things Cynthia was saying, and then, some of them know it really quite well and could actually be helpful in terms of helping to train others. Absolutely, some of them are in that category.
Okay.
But others just wouldn't have any idea.
So why don't we? I'm sorry.
I'm done.
So why don't we say thank you to Ani and Patty, so they can go grade papers, whatever they're going to do, and then we'll just we'll read. Now we can go back to the reassignment.
What you just said, introducing the whole idea of the PD program.
Yes.
The flex day.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, at every fall at the statewide Senate academic conference, they have a workshop called "I'm New, Now What Do I Do?" So we can have a workshop like that. Okay, so what are the things I need to do?
What do I need to do?
I'm old, I need to know more.
Tell them they need to be on a committee. They don't know it better. So
I know. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we'll just continue the reassignment.
Okay. I have fall of 14 and spring of 15. I believe they are correct. If there's a mistake, don't get on me too much.
Why don't you tell them where this information came from?
It came from, well, what happens is people do these forms, these change of assignment forms that say, 20% this or 30% this, and then they go to HR, and then HR puts them on a list. So in some cases, the form didn't get over there. In some cases, the dean didn't know they had to do a form, so that was what created some of the problems. It might be better in the future to approach it the opposite way and say, this is who is reassigned, and then HR goes and gets the forms, rather than the other way around, no?
Well, but let me be very clear about how the process works. And this is where it fell apart. Everybody gets paid regardless. However,
Right.
every semester, every manager who manages faculty, so in most cases deans, has to create a load for that faculty member. It has to be submitted to HR so that from a payroll point of view and a cost accounting point of view, the percentages of faculty members can be apportioned to the right places. From 2005, when I was a dean here, I used to do that all the time for programs like Study Abroad, for C&I, for honors, because those are the three that I had to do. So every semester or every year, I had to fill out these change of assignment forms. A problem that we've had predating 2005, and gosh knows how long even before that, is that when deans didn't do that for some reason, it didn't mean that Eduardo Cairo wasn't getting paid. He was still getting paid. It just meant that his assignment, his payment was getting charged to the wrong places sometimes. So now, so then when you go to HR in what's called the Human Resources Information System, it's only as good as the data that has been placed in it. So this time, and of course we've been on this for like 3 years, literally. This started with Ed Martinez. This time we said we need to reconcile what HR has with what the deans have. And we had to send the deans out to do a kind of person-by-person review of exactly what the assignments were. They did that with pencil and paper. That information was then given to Kathy. Kathy then sat down with Julie Mosier or somebody in HR, and they reconciled the two lists together. So what you have here is the HR list with Kathy's information on it as provided by the deans. Now going forward, Dr. Bell and Dr. Scott are communicating to the deans every semester. You need to look at all of your faculty and make certain that their change of assignment forms are current. And then that information will then in turn be given to HR, and it literally will be a push of a button report. The problem was that the push of the button report this time was not accurate in every case because the information was not in the machine. Joe, that's pretty accurate what I just said, right?
That is right.
So that's the problem. So what you have here now is a combination of the written and the machine, and Kathy's saying to the best of her ability, she's got all the information the deans have given her, and there it is right there. So if you hand those out again?
No.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
We're salivating.
All right, this is fall. And this is spring. Wait a minute, don't take my only one. How many do you need?
I was going to give one.
I already gave them. Oh,
I need one. I'll give mine to Maureen.
Bob and I can share.
Yeah, we'll share.
Here. And here's spring. Ryan here. And Bob and I will share.
Do you have any spring?
No, I don't have more of anything.
No, I mean, I have two.
No, well, that was,
Okay, so Maureen will just get Ryan's later, right, Maureen? Yeah, we're good.
okay.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay.
So who put this topic on the agenda? Was it, okay.
So perhaps the first thing to look at real quick, and I assume it's summed here, is the total amount of release time positions for fall and spring?
It's not some. And
It's not some.
the reason is that some of them that we did not have salary information for, they were not listed on here before. Now their salary information is the new information going forward, so.
Well, it's not the salary, I was thinking just in the number of positions.
Oh, I
at
don't know.
release time.
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah, electronically? Okay, so real simple. So then we'll just find the total number of positions.
Now, are you gonna pull out all the grant stuff? Do we care about what's grant funded?
Well, we do, but not necessarily right now. Let's just get the grand total. The other thing that, somebody made a point, you made a point the other day about the salary and that what the actual cost is.
Right.
Because it's not bad. You want to mention that real quick, and then you can walk
Right,
us.
like if you take a classroom instructor, such as Chris. If Chris has got reassigned time to do something, then it's not really the cost of her salary, it's the cost of whoever's backfilling her. So whatever the cost of adjuncts is to teach the classes that she would have taught, that's the real cost. It's not, 50% of her full-time salary. That inflates it in a way that really isn't accurate.
Now, the other way to look at that, though, is that 50% of her full-time salary is being invested in something other than
True.
classroom teaching.
True.
And then in order and then on top of that, we pay an adjunct, assuming we have to backfill her teaching assignment, which obviously we likely would in most cases, on top of that. So it's the total number of out-of-classroom faculty coupled with the actual dollars that it costs to do this stuff.
I have to say, I don't see Joseph Sierra's name in there.
It is, it's right here.
I put him on there, he wasn't on there before.
Spring 2015, I see
Okay,
him.
fall.
He would be under English. Is that how these are broken down by
Yes,
school?
if it's not on there, it's just a mistake, but.
I don't think we have fall of 2015, do
No,
we?
we have 14 only.
Yeah, we have spring of 2015, but not fall.
Right.
So what's fall 2014?
No, it hasn't been determined, right? Spring,
Right.
fall 2015, yeah, fall 2015.
Oh, that's right, fall.
Right, so that's right.
Oh, yeah.
So where's English?
He's in spring of 15. Look on spring. It's more accurate.
Yeah.
This is past.
So
So
he's
it's
current.
So
If
he's
they're
not
not
on
on
fall.
fall,
He
that
should be
doesn't-
on
Here.
fall.
He's
If
right
it-
here.
If they're not in fall, that could be one of those errors.
That
It
is
could
an
be.
error. Yeah, because he definitely should have been.
Yeah. Laura Cecilia Medina in the fall.
I don't even know that she was in the fall.
I think so. but-
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So why don't we do this?
I would look at spring 15. I think it's more accurate.
Me
Well,
too.
but why don't we do this? Now the information is there. I don't want to take time during this meeting or not, but I think between now and the next meeting, everybody can kind of go through these. And if you're aware of corrections, we can make those corrections. The other thing you can do is maybe distribute this to your deans and say, deans,
I've already done that. I've talked to every one of them.
so Amy missed, for example, fall of 14.
Some of these I gave to someone to type, and
You
and
know
it just,
Okay, so
I
maybe
didn't
the
have
type
time. I didn't have time to
Kathy.
review
That's
it.
okay.
Kathy, I think the issue is that I know I was looking at your spring one and I thought it applied for fall too.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the counseling list
Someone's
for
trying to help
spring
me.
is the fall list.
It's the same.
So let me just
Yeah.
sum up
Yeah, use the spring one. It's gonna.
spring.
Okay, but let me do a timeout here, folks. All right, it's absolutely essential that we look at these as two separate points in time. Because not every release time assignment is a year assignment. Most are, but some are not. So that's why we do change of assignments every semester, because things can change. So if these are not accurate, then what Kathy can do is take them back to Cherise and clean them up for the next meeting. In the meantime, you folks now have these things, and if there are things that you're aware of, you can mark them down and you can bring them to Kathy's attention. This is a lot closer than we've been in 3 years to at least having some sense of this. Yes, Julie?
What does the pay months refer to?
Months paid,
Oh.
contract.
10, 11, or 12 month faculty.
So,
It's not right, if that's what that is.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of people listed here as 12-month faculty that are 10-month faculty.
Okay.
unless they were on a grant, and
I
the
can
grant,
speak for social sciences.
okay.
So I know for a fact that errors.
So who, for
So
example?
I know, for example, that Suzanne is wrong, I'm wrong, and if those two are wrong, then I know that
Right, you're exactly right. Suzanne is not 20% release time for 12 months.
Exactly.
She's 20% release time for 10 months. That's your point.
Exactly.
And the same thing with you, Julie, right?
Exactly.
And the
So
same for
I'm
the Senate
guessing that
officers.
there is a more pervasive issue.
And the same for the Senate officers.
And almost everything for social sciences and English too,
Yeah.
we're only 10 months.
So what I would say is every one of these, we start at 10, but usually in the grant positions, they might be 11, they might be 12. But then we've got to go look at all these individually. Yeah, good point. Where'd that column come from?
So Kathy, what
This
it
is
looks
an-
like
it's an
summed
HR
up
form.
Uh-huh.
It's an HR form.
Okay.
I didn't even look at that, I was just trying to get the names right.
What's the fall?
Kathy, for
What?
spring.
Spring.
What it
What?
looks like summed up is 87 people in 98 assignments, making up 39.9 FTE.
Yeah, that
39.9?
seems very high.
So
to me.
89 individuals, 90,
80,
Okay, but what I think we need to do is, that seems high, but clearly we need to go back, take a look at this, look at each column, and make some adjustments. But again, for example, although Julie and Suzanne might want 2-month raises, just because you're wonderful. But if
Well,
it's,
it's here in writing.
I know, there you go. What more do you
it
want?
must be true.
That needs to be turned in on your way out.
The point being is that we need to sit down with HR and find out what's in the system. Well, clearly that's not in the system, or else you wouldn't get extra paychecks, but.
And I-
Oh, you know what it might be? Did you opt to have your 10-month divided into
Yes,
12?
but that's not.
But that's
that
inaccurate
should be
too.
on here.
Yeah, so, there are a lot of faculty who opt to get their 10-month salary over a 12-month period, and that probably is what we're looking at here,
Oh,
right?
that probably is, because I opted for that.
Yeah.
That is that.
And I think it's important too that we start to get an idea what the scope of work is for these different things
Yes.
and how they relate to each other, and ones that are similar should be paid a similar amount. And
Right.
they seem to be kind of all over the board, maybe for good reasons.
Once upon a time in a land far, far, far away, when I was Dean of Academic Support and I had release time, I required the manager to give me a job description. And what the percentage release time for and the specific functions, and I stapled it to the change of assignment form. And I sent the change of assignment form with the position description or basically the duties to be performed. And that's how we did it. And I did the same thing for stipends. That if we're going to pay somebody $50 an hour or $2,500, divided by 50, here's what they're going to do.
That's what you're getting
This
for it.
is you're getting for it. This is what the expectation is of the faculty member in terms of what they're doing. So I think we need to go back to that world too.
But we need to look at the hours that are associated with them, rather than just the task, because the task doesn't tell you.
Right. But that's why we've had.
Because that's how you
That's
determine.
why
Going back
form,
to
I
the
think,
Jim
is
Kostler
important.
days, right? And that was what, 8 years ago now, whatever it was. Jim basically set, and I guess it was agreed upon by the free world out there, that instead of paying people's hourly rate, we would pay a maximum of $50. We would pay $50 per hour for stipend work. So even though your hourly rate might be $65 an hour, you agree to do $50 an hour, and it's been that way for years, long time. Because Jim said that's it, I'm not going to pay any more than that at that point. Now, maybe it's time to take another look at it because inflation, what have you. But so when I did it, we had, and most of the stuff was out of the TLC. We were going to pay somebody a stipend for $2,500, and I would say to Brock or Lynn Wright or whoever was managing at the time, you want one of these, so give me a title for one of that, give me a job, give me a little description of what they're going to do, and show me how the hours are going to equate to that. And then when we did the verification of services form, I would reconcile the two together and say, okay, we owe them this amount of hours to do this kind of work, and this percentage of the work was completed, so we can pay them for this.
So what we should do then is create a job description and then based on the job description, assign or reassign time?
And these things are not life positions. They should have a time limit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Faculty can't be doing things or getting paid for things that are not in the contract.
Right.
The contract does not talk about leads, co-leads, coordinators. We can't just be pulling faculty out of the classroom, calling them mushrooms, and paying them arbitrarily whatever we choose to pay them.
Which is why we have the stipend model as well, right? So you still, and that, so here's the deal, you can teach, you can do overload, and if the dean, VPs, whoever agrees, you can also get paid a separate stipend amount to do extra work above that.
We need to clean up our act.
Yeah. But that's how we did it a lot, you know, everything was not always release time, it was release time and, in fact, if you look at our board report, almost every meeting, you see these $500, $800, $2,500 for these stipended work, which is above and beyond teaching.
Bob, I also think it's a good point to, and this is something that I utilized after our discussions this year. It's a good point that if it's a grant, perhaps a position is needed versus a reassignment. So I think we also have to use this discussion to help lead us to that. So with the equity project, for example, I did think a faculty member would be great to serve as the leader of equity because they know our students, they know our campus, they can navigate the bureaucracies that exist. But then I realized I was writing a new job. So then I'm going to post a position and hopefully faculty apply, but they would be applying for a new job, not taking them, you know, out of the classroom for temporarily.
Right, and that's a big concept, and I think that's true because what we've done over the years is we've taken our faculty. I mean, if Ryan's math is correct, we've got 40 faculty out of a group of 360 or whatever the number is now. That's a big percentage. It's a big number, and that's how this whole thing started. Right?
Right. I will say that's pretty normal across other colleges.
For a school this size.
For just proportionally, that's pretty normal across the campuses I've been on.
You just helped me reconfigure my question.
Okay.
There we go. If I want to teach 9 classes on this campus, I can't. I can teach maximum 2 overloads. So if I teach my maximum overloads, is there a maximum stipend? So I can go around the limit by saying I'm going to teach 7, and I'm going to apply for these 3 stipends, or 4, or 5. Is there a limit?
I don't know if anybody's ever created a limit, but I think that from the point of view of just recognizing the workload associated with teaching, you know, 7 classes or whatever you're going to teach, plus all the responsibility associated with the stipend, you know, can somebody do it?
Right.
You know, can they work 12, 14, 16 hours and maintain the quality? And at that point, that's where the dean would say, I don't think so. It's just too much to ask of that individual. And so that becomes a...
So ultimately, the stipend, what determines whether I get a stipend is my dean saying yes or no, or any faculty's dean.
Well, any faculty deans, maybe in association with, you know, the VP of the area, in association with the person who's requesting that person involved in stipends. Yeah, I think that's a management responsibility. At some point, you have to say, are the students going to end up getting shortchanged because the man or woman just doesn't have...
You're overextended.
Overextended. Yeah.
That's a very murky area.
It's very gray, and that's
If
why
you
we
leave it up to the individual deans to make those decisions, I think that's a really murky area.
Right. So I think then that's where, you know, Dr. Bell, Scott, and others get into the discussion. Does it make any sense? And frankly, if it's a big enough issue, then it's something that's discussed at this table, because it is an academic and professional matter in the sense of the quality that we're doing here. The union can, and Julie checked me on this, but the union can represent faculty in relation to their 10-month contracts and their keeping assignments and what have you, but the union doesn't speak to stipends or anything like that, does it? Or does it?
We speak to how much you will pay us for the stipend.
You can speak to that, but you haven't, thus far you haven't though, right?
Well, for 4 years, we weren't able to talk about anything. So.
Okay. So that $50 an hour thing was just placed, was imposed.
I believe so.
And so now, because of my big mouth, we might negotiate it next time, but who knows? That's a joke for the camera.
The Senate actually asked us to do that the last time we met.
Good. So maybe we'll talk about that.
So another issue.
Maybe we will talk about that.
Can I say something about what you just raised, though? If one person's getting a stipend and has all these extra assignments, you know, to the extent that we can, I'd like to see it spread around so that people have opportunities to do other things, rather than having one person do all of it.
How do we do that?
Well, that could be part of the decision-making process in terms of who...
Recruitment. You want to, Kathy, I think she's right. You've got to, you want to provide equal opportunity for everybody to participate, and more importantly, and you three are probably, you know this better than most, is that if the load is only on your shoulders, you know, so you need, as you know, just trying to get people to volunteer for these committees. So it's a good point.
Well, just it helps, I think, to engage more people, which we need to do.
Okay,
so in the life of the institution.
So when it comes time to which leads into my next point regarding this, the flying of the positions. So when it comes time to apply, if I were to apply, the committee would say, well, hold up here. Eduardo here is teaching 7 classes and is applying, it already has this stipend, now is applying for this other stipend. We should start looking at other people.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so in regards to the flying position, what positions here?
Although we also, I mean, I say that, but we also want the best person for the position.
I agree.
So, you know, if one person is highly qualified and other people are not, then that will play into it. It has to.
But then it leads to the question, how do those people that are not qualified, how do they become qualified?
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
If we keep getting to the person that's always qualified.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so in regards to all these positions, so the idea was that, as you stated earlier, that these are not lifetime positions. So I think 2 things need to be done. One, we need to determine how long is each assignment for, and will every single one of these positions that we have here, will every single one of them be flown, or are there some that we won't do that too? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the issue of that we were discussing about the IEC. So in our bylaws, it says that the President Academic Senate nominates or approves nominates the IEC. The Senate approves it. But then, given the fact that IEC chair has reassigned time, now we go back to this issue here.
Right.
Because here it says we're gonna fly it.
Right. It's a bit of a problem.
Right. So we either create exemptions or we change the bylaws.
Right. But some of the reassigned times on this form are contractual obligation. All your reassigned times are mandated.
Right.
So some of these we need to look at and pull those out from consideration.
Exactly.
Because those, as far as I'm concerned, aren't open for discussion unless we decide the academic senate president needs to go from 80 to 90 to 100 or in a different direction.
Right.
So there's different caveats to this, different layers of this. So we separate those out first, which are contractual, because we're not going to address those. And then look at the others. Some I think will need to apply for position descriptions, and others will have to do. But if we try all of these by positions, we have a lot of positions. Description that will apply.
So we can move the agenda. Let me suggest this. Our side will take up at the next executive committee meeting this topic of pulling together a work team to work with people that the Academic Senate leadership comes up with to review all of these release time assignments. And while we're doing that, we can try to clean them up as best we can. And the task team's responsibility will be to look at each and every one of these assignments, determine a variety of things, as Eduardo just said, whether it will be advertised or whether it is appointed by either side because it's contractual, or just another animal like the IEC, or policy. It's bound by policy to do something. The other thing that they'll do is determine how often they will be reflown, the term. The other thing it might do is differentiate between 01 and 03, or district-funded 01 versus grant-funded. And are the rules different, if you will, for district versus grant? For example, if I wrote the grant as a faculty member, do I really have to apply to become the project director? I wrote the darn grant. And so, that might be an exception, right? And that would be part of the consideration.
Well, in some cases, we get grants based on
who wrote it.
Well, based on we've told the Department of Ed, these people are going to work on it.
Right.
based on their, and they have little job descriptions and background, and that helps us get the grant.
Right.
I just, we've been interviewing some incredible faculty, and some of them are very, very specific subject area experts, and their resumes are crazy. And a funding source might just say, yeah, look at that, that MIT PhD can really do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so the work team, so at exec, and Ryan will make a point of this, we'll talk about which people on this side of the table will participate in this work team. Might be Dr. Bell and Dr. Scott or whomever. And then exactly the same thing, pull the group together over the summer, into the fall, we can get this nailed down and come up with the process. Does that work?
Yeah, and some of these are for the school only, so they wouldn't be flown out there.
Right, and that's what we said.
A lot of them.
Yeah,
most of them are
These
that.
are bright flames anyway.
Yeah, so I think what's good about there's lots of things good about this is that we now see them all in one place.
Yeah,
So-
I think the spring one is actually pretty good. I'm sorry about what happened with fall, but the spring one is pretty good.
The fall and the spring, fall usually is a busier time, but I think when we looked at this one point, well, anyway, I think we should have an accurate fall and an accurate spring, and then we can kind of go from there.
I gotta use this one. The only thing, most of them, there's only a few that are different, only because of changes in personnel, like Lynn Wright left, and that opened up Katie Rodriguez and Veronica Aramillo to take over those duties. So that came in spring, which wasn't there in fall. But other than people leaving, it's the same list. So we'll just use this one.
Okay, so you got a path forward on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move.
Planning and priorities.
Yes. 5B. So, what do we want to talk about this?
Well, we're in the process of appointing a new PNP chair. And then, so we looked at the policy and it says that we need to consult with the president superintendent. And then from our conversation, we looked at how you stated that the PNP chair is also the AAC co-chair.
The accreditation.
Right, so, right, plus the self-study.
Right, exactly.
Right, self-study. So the way we read it, so correct us if I'm wrong, it says in consultation, so we can consult and then we can appoint. So what we want to do is appoint Chris to become the new co-chair of the PNP.
Right. So here's kind of where I'm in two places on this at the moment. The first place is that there's been some conversation among us about the fact that PNP currently is the accreditation steering committee as well as planning priorities. Although there's overlap, there's also significant difference between what PNP does. Under planning, we have a lot of work we need to do in the planning area. The policy says what the policy says right now, so we're all sort of stuck with the policy for the time being. What we were talking about just this morning is this notion of creating, first of all, a position description for what we might now call a faculty accreditation chair. And his or her duties would be anywhere from 100% release time as we approach the midterm report or as we approach the final report to something less as we work. For example, we're going to start working on, come July, responding to 7 recommendations within a year. So depending on what's on the plate, that person's release time might be 100%, it might be 30%, depending on what we have to do. So by coming up with a position description for the faculty accreditation chair, for lack of a better title, and what he or she would be responsible for, we would then have that model of how we're going to support the accreditation issues, from big issues to small issues. Then the next thing we have to do is figure out and say, we approved the accreditation policy 4 years ago now, I think it was. I think it was back during either Jim Bickley's
December
time.
12th, 2012.
Okay. So, and that was under, so whoever it was, but the point is all the work that put that together was, I think, Ed Martinez, or maybe it was Jim Bickley, or both of them. So that policy is there. So now what we need to do is go back and say, okay, do we now need to separate P&P from accreditation? And then in that regard, who is the co-chair? So if that's separate at that point, and the academic senate has the ability, assuming we keep this co-chair model, then you could appoint Chris or not appoint Chris. Where we currently are right now is Stephanie is our accreditation coordinator through at least next fall. Right, Stephanie?
Sure.
Through next fall. So she stays in that role, working with our ALO, Kathy, as we begin the process of addressing the recommendations, until such time as the policy is modified. So I think if we spend our time right now focusing on P&P, Accreditation Steering Committee, faculty chair, put that plan together, meet with Dr. Verdeen, who will be here in 6 weeks, where are we? 8 weeks, whatever it is, he'll be here soon. Go from there. My second point, that was all one point, how'd you like that? My second point is simply this. I mean this respectfully, I'm just a caretaker right now. I'm not in a position to make any significant decisions because I'm not going to be the superintendent president. So I do not believe that I can get ahead of his curve. I can't put my horse in front of his cart, or my cart in front of his horse, is what I'm trying to say. All I can do is just try to keep things as stable as we can keep them. Notwithstanding an issue, never mind. Keep things as stable as we can keep them until such time as he arrives, July 1, and I hand the reins over to him. I'm all about 2 words right now, orderly transition. So I'm not in a position of making a big decision that's going to either be plus or minus or anything in between. So that's what I think about.
If and when if there were to be a policy change.
And just for clarity, procedure change.
You're correct. Right?
Well, but he's right, but you might want to look at the policy too and see if the policy needs to be tweaked. It's mostly procedural, but there may be something in the policy.
Policy is pretty
standard.
Yeah.
If we were to look, I was looking at the policy with the procedure. One thing that's lacking is date of termination.
Yeah.
For how long is this job for? And so this goes back to the issue of reassigned time, that it doesn't state. So if and when this does happen, what needs to be said is this job is good until, or a good date till. Yeah.
Right.
Well, with that position,
Which one, the P&P or the self-accreditation?
the accreditation,
Okay.
I mean, to break it up at certain points would not be helpful. You know what I'm saying? That would be one where I'm not sure I would agree with 2-year. Because if you're working up towards a self-study, you don't want to yank that person out and put someone else in the middle. I mean, you can't do that. So these have to be strategically done.
Could be written in, yeah.
And at this point, you know, we have our self-study and we're going to have recommendations. Would this be the right point either? I don't know, and I don't think so. We have to, you know what I'm saying, we have to be very careful. Once we get reaffirmed, and it also depends on how long the person wants to do it. I suppose they can leave it at a point.
That's usually the factor that clears out.
Yeah.
But then, you know, once you get reaffirmed,
That's good time.
once we do get reaffirmed, then, you know, then it kind of starts over again, and it's a good time for someone else to come in. But
I have a couple thoughts on this. One is, we have been working on the reassigned time and the professional development policies for a good year now, and we're not done. So to rework a policy like this is not going to happen in a couple of months. It's going to take a long time.
Yes.
We have finished the accreditation report from December of 2012. We're kind of done with that phase, and we're entering into a new phase now. And I think it's important that we get some new ideas, some new perspective on that. Stephanie got us through the report. We've got that part done. Now we need to start addressing some of these issues, and I think this is a good time to make a transition to something new. And to get, you know, just some new feedback, have somebody else prepared. So we have only one person on campus right now who knows what's going on. It might be nice to have 2. or eventually 3 or 4, if this breaks down to every couple of years somebody else steps in, so that we have some flexibility in who can work with the report. We could have a team doing it rather than one individual really putting themselves through the, the grindstone to get it done.
Simply seeing the same problem from a different set of eyes leads to different solutions.
Yeah. Well, I think that. Go ahead.
At this point, it starts moving really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like 6 years where you have all 6 years to build up to writing a self-study. It's really fast at this point. You have follow-up report, and then midterms. You have 3 reports within a 2-year period. If someone else is going to come in, they need to be really well trained, because this is not. When you were on sanction, I don't know if this is time to be training somebody who doesn't have the background in it, because we have some issues to deal with. And
are you the ALO now?
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Dr. Verdeen, one of the reasons why they hired Dr. Verdeen is because he's got a lot of experience with accreditation. So he probably, I don't want to speak for him, he's probably got some ideas as to how to help us get through this. That's one of the reasons why they hired him. So I'm sympathetic to what you just said, Chris. I really am. We have a tendency at this campus to committee something to death. But I think that if this were somehow fast-tracked over the summer into the fall, so we could literally get to this quickly, but I would be very, very hesitant. In fact, I just wouldn't do it to get ahead of his play on this right now. And the board would hang me by my fingernails if I even suggested such a thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure changing the faculty co-chair would step on his toes at all.
It's more than just changing the co-chair, it's changing the process, the concept. It addresses some of what Kathy was just talking about right now from a continuity point of view, from just knowing it. We are likely going to be placed on sanction. I'm praying it's not probation. I'm hoping it's just warning. But within 12 very short months, we've got to report out significant action, or else we will go probation. It's like 8. Like 9.
It will need to be sent by probably January.
Yeah. So
I also think there's going to be enough of the follow-up work that needs to be submitted for everyone to step into different supportive leadership roles.
Yeah, there'll be more opportunities.
Yes, subcommittees. There's going to be a lot of work that we're going to have to do.
So when would a training process then begin for a sort of a transition? It seems like to me it would be a really good time for a training process to begin.
I think Kathy already said it at a point that we get reaffirmed. In fact, in the current policy, it talks about the training process taking place 2 years before the self-study is due.
And that would be the.
This is someone who should
go to somebody through the report.
This is someone who should go through the ACCJC trainings. And even be part of a team where they go out to another institution and see what it's like to be on a team. That's the best training.
I'll just say from my experience, it's not a good time to change people. What we are going to see come July, whatever, when they lend this out, is going to create a lot of work in a very short amount of time, and we need to make sure that we have the people who are best trained for it.
Definitely.
I just wanted to try to help inform the conversation just a little bit on 2 issues. One, to echo what Ryan was talking about with the transition period. It's actually built into the current procedures about how the current person in this position will help transition a new person in. We have to have a procedure of opening this up to the campus, of having an application, of having that opportunity for everyone. And then just to go back a little bit to help inform Capm about the process that we went through with the revisions to the current policy and procedures. So in 2012, we used guidelines that were set down from the statewide academic senate. We looked at other policies and procedures from other colleges. We worked with the current academic senate president and went through and made revisions. And then this was taken around to all of the shared governance committees, including academic senate. It was vetted through academic senate at 4 different presentations to Academic Senate, and feedback was given, and that is the procedure that we have. It was very intentional to make planning and priorities the accreditation steering committee, because we wanted to institutionalize the process of accreditation so that it wasn't an ad hoc forum. Instead, it was an institutionalized forum. If we want to have a conversation about splitting the steering committee back away from planning and priorities, I think that's great, but I think we need to do an evaluation and have data and evidence behind that decision-making and conversation before we push ahead and do that. I think it needs to be an informed process. And we also had a conversation that the person who's in this particular position would be institutionalized and be there for the full 6-year cycle. And so then there would be a clear transition maybe in year 5, and that's what that transition in the procedures talks about. That was the idea behind, it only, in the position that was released for people to apply, it was only for the first few years, right. But the intention behind the procedure change was to institutionalize this position, and that's why there's no termination date, so that the college could have a conversation about when it would be effective to have the next rollover and there would be a clear transition period.
Stephanie describes exactly what happened, because I was actually there for a lot of this conversation. And, I personally still think that P&P being the Accreditation Steering Committee is the right thing to do. I continue to think that. I also agree that the whole idea was to kind of come up with a position, a dedicated faculty position that would be assigned. And the 6-year thing, and everything she talked about is exactly what everybody talked about for a year or so at least, I remember.
It took a full year, I think,
yeah.
for the revisions to take place.
But the other reality is that, let's say Stephanie does decide that she wants to step down at the end of the fall semester. We do need to prepare the next person. We need to have a process. God forbid somebody has a health issue or anything happens. You can't have all of our eggs in one person's basket, and so we need to be cognizant of that as well.
This might be a good time to make that transition then,
yeah.
Because now as we're moving out of the report cycle and into the rest of this, it seems like it'd be a great time to have maybe 2 co-chairs. Stephanie also has taken on some significant responsibilities with the Faculty Senate now, and from our experience, we know that's going to take up a lot of time. So
there's 2 questions. So the first one is, as Stephanie said, we would need an evaluation data to support the need for a change, for a split. So I would first take a look at the evaluation data that was used to join both of them together. And then my second question is, so Ryan said we need the right time, okay? So when would that right time be? Yeah. Between now and...
Are you talking about
for
changing leadership, yeah. Or are you talking about...
For the position of the P&P and the steering committee, when would that change? When is the right time for that?
Well, if you're talking about the procedure,
as
in whether or not the committee should be separate, that would happen as we go through our conversations with integrated planning and shared governance. But if you're talking about the chair, I agree with Kathy that it's when you get your reaffirmation, which if we do things right will be July of 2016. Yeah. And that gives you a 5-year window before the next, 4 years, 9-month window before the next visit, and a 4.5-year window before the self-study is due, and a 2.5-year window before you have to start doing the new self-study. So it gives you an opportunity to really start getting your feet wet, but in an environment where the risk is significantly less, because it's going to be tough, and we have some other things that we're going to have to make sure that we get on top of with accreditation.
See, I think what people will appreciate more when the actual report gets here is the amount of work it's going to take to deal with those 7 recommendations. And at that point,
we'll need to have another person being.
We'll need to have a lot more than another person. I think that's Cynthia's point, that we're going to need a number of people engaged on, almost a team per recommendation in some respects.
Yeah, I think.
That's what I did.
I'm seeing resistance from the part of the administration not to undergo a change right now. And the best change would be, you said, in July of 2016.
If we get off.
Okay, so what I would like to see then, because if we wait to July 2016, that would prevent Chris from having gained all the knowledge that would be necessary, that would be gained during this time. So if you're really resistant or not unwilling.
Before you say it, what I'm not resistant to at all is the reality that next spring, Stephanie may be stepping down.
Right.
So, yeah, knowing that, we do need to have somebody else, or somebody else's, multiple people, engaged. So we do need a plan B, okay? Ryan's right, Kathy's right, the best time to do is when you're reaffirmed, but but we're dealing with a different reality here because Stephanie has advised us that she's only good through the fall. Maybe she'll extend, maybe she won't, but we have to assume that she won't right now.
Well, the conversation was we need to have a conversation about what's best for the college.
Right.
And we don't know what the official recommendations are yet. The conversation that we had, we were going to wait to talk about that until the formal, results were available in June or July, and then we would have a conversation.
Yeah.
And for continuity, you would ask that I would just commit through the fall.
Right.
And then once we have those results and once we have a plan, then I would assume that we would have a conversation about what the next steps are that's best for the institution. If it's best that there's more continuity, then we'll have that conversation. If it's best that we start to transition, then we'll have that conversation.
And so let me speak very honestly and plainly here, because I'm so shy of that. Right? These are videotaped. These are public comment. You folks are transitioning off in 6 weeks. New folks are coming in. You're trying to nail down certain things before you go. If this doesn't get nailed down in the manner that you want, then you might, and I'm just talking out loud here, you might be thinking, well, we've missed the opportunity. I'm here to tell you, and I knew this from talking to Dr. Verdeen a lot, or at least enough, a couple of times verbally, 3 times verbally, and many emails. If in public comment, if in a college council meeting, if in any place the 3 of you or others voice this concern, it will get addressed. Okay? So it's not like, that what Stephanie just articulated is absolutely what we thought was in the best interest of the college, and what we still think, because we don't know what we're dealing with yet. But if just because you move off, just by virtue of the election results, just because you move off, doesn't mean that your voices are silenced forever. I know the 3 of you will. Pat, she'll come back as an adjunct and she'll participate.
After 6 months.
After 6 months. But the point is, it'll still be there.
We know that's true. Yeah, we know that's true. But the chance to be really proactive, is now. And it concerns me a little bit that, we have a policy. And we have a lot of policies that have come down to us from the board. And we find these ways to kind of wiggle around what the policy says over and over again. And I don't like that.
How's that in reference to this situation?
Well, according to the policy, Eduardo has the authority to assign someone to that committee as a co-chair in consultation with
in consultation with the
We're
president.
consulting right now.
Right.
And I think
It's
what
not
Bob's
like
saying is
it's
he's not the right one to be consulting with a brand new guy coming in 6 weeks.
Well, but if we were to follow policy, we're consulting. It doesn't say with the approval of. It says in consultation with. And that's what Chris is referencing.
We're of course doing this in the best interest of the college, we believe. So waiting for another president, it just postpones.
Isn't it also true though that we've discussed the fact that any position that comes with reassigned time should be flown so that everybody
But there are
can fly?
exceptions to that, as we just discussed.
Well, we've had this,
There are
but that's
things
not
written
a
into
policy
bylaws.
yet.
Yeah, that's written into policy. We can't change that. That's not a flown position. The Senate offices are not flown positions. They're elected.
But actually, Stephanie did apply through an application process.
She was appointed.
No, I wasn't. I applied.
You may have applied, but
I
she was
went through an
appointed.
interview.
Yeah. It's
But we're
in the
talking about
minutes.
PNP.
It's in the minutes.
If we were to look at our policy in PNP, it says that as the Senate President appoints in consultation with, which is exactly what we've done. It doesn't say with the approval of, it says in
No,
consultation.
it says 3B, the self-study coordinator will be appointed by the academic senate in consultation with the college superintendent president. Doesn't say interim superintendent president. It says superintendent president. That's one thing. And secondly, I just don't think I can get ahead of them on this, and I think the board would kill me if I did.
Yeah,
I mean, because to quote unquote make you happy makes the other group unhappy. And Stephanie's punching away on her phone there, right? Right?
I want to.
So it's like what is that?
I think we need to also visit the policy, because now that I hear that it says we should do something 2 years in advance, I think it should be 3 years in advance, because the new self-study coordinator should have a mechanism for gathering evidence sooner than what we did this time.
The whole procedure needs to be looked at again.
That's just saying 2 years before the study begins, training should occur 2 years before. But that's irrelevant. Right now we're talking about the policy stating that the academic senate president has the right to appoint.
And we run into this all the time in the Senate too. People say, well, you know, it should be like this. Well, yeah, maybe it should be, but this is what the bylaws say.
But this is what it says.
We just have to live with the
So
bylaws.
is it your intention then that the academic senate president can appoint, reappoint, reassign this position at any point?
No, that's not my position. My position is that the academic senate president has the right to appoint.
At any point?
I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that.
Well, then at what point does the academic senate president have the right to appoint this position?
We're not here to
This is
discuss that
academic
matter.
senate.
We're here
This
to
is
say that
the
right now
president.
we have that authority.
But the
And-
thought was that this is a good transition point.
Yeah, the
The
academic.
report is completed. We're starting a new phase now of addressing the AIPs.
So what it boils down to, it says clearly, the self-study coordinator will be appointed by the academic senates, whole senate, in consultation with the college superintendent president, currently me.
Yeah, and I guess, Chris, what I'm hearing is that while you all believe that the study itself is complete and submitted, and so it's a good point, I don't see it as the project being complete until we get our status back and we know what plan of action we have to work on in regards to the accreditation as a whole.
But that's a different phase. The phase of creating the report is completed. We're waiting for the next phase of implementation of whatever we're told to do. So now is the perfect time to make that change, to make that transition. And I mean, really, what we're looking at is it's a matter of opinion, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You're saying no, we're saying yes.
Yeah.
But it would be a wrong thing to say 3 months into the beginning of the writing of the report for that to happen. That would be wrong.
So I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna require a response from anybody on this, or not gonna request a response. In our role, we don't require much in that regard. This is one of those Solomon split the baby things, right? Would it be feasible for Stephanie and Chris to work together as we lead into the next phase of what we're going to be leading into and try that? I don't need an answer. You know, everybody needs to consider and think about, but that might be a way to do a couple of things. One, bring both sides a little closer together on what is the greater good, which is dealing with these recommendations. Two, hedging our bets a little bit if Stephanie decides to move on. Three, and most importantly, this woman as the ALO, she's going to have the primary responsibility for putting this document together in 6 or 7 or 8 months. Every resource that we have, from faculty to administration, is going to have to be pulled together to pull all of our collective bacons out of the fire, so to speak. You love my metaphors. You're gonna miss my metaphors.
That's a great.
You're gonna miss my metaphors.
I thought they were kumquats.
Those two. You're gonna miss those too. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. No, only kidding. But you know, somehow we got to figure out a way to work together on this stuff, or else we're all going to be another one, deep bandini. So I'll just throw that out. You guys to think about Stephanie will talk to her colleagues. Someday I pray that when we say colleagues, we mean all of us as colleagues, and not this little divided thing we got going at the moment. But that's my own little thing. So maybe we can leave it at that for now. Let's just throw it out there. There's nothing that stops any of you, other than maybe an upset board president, sending a note to Dr. Verdeen. For all I know, he's probably receiving, volumes of them, if that's what you feel you need to do right now. I'd recommend against it, but it's a free country, okay? But I think I need to take the position that I've taken for now and hope that maybe we can come up with a compromise.
Agreed.
Okay. So, that was a delightful conversation. Let's move on to 5C.
Another fun one.
Actually, this one should be pretty short, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to do.
Yeah, we're
What's the
kind
question?
of, was just about the amount of reassigned time, right, Kathy?
Yes, I think there was some sort of meeting set up. I don't know what happened to it.
You canceled it.
I didn't cancel it.
Hiring,
Yeah, I got an email from you canceling it.
hiring committee.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably.
I didn't cancel it.
Okay. Well, let's
To
just,
be continued.
yeah, let's just defer for
Yeah,
now.
I suppose he canceled Capm.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you may have
You did,
canceled this
supposedly you did.
It's Dr. Bell who canceled
Wasn't
it.
supposed.
Probably.
Wasn't supposed. I got the email.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Dr. Bell said.
I learned from him.
Rodney had told me, I wouldn't know I had done it.
I think I meant to say I couldn't go. Gosh, I don't know.
Okay,
Alright,
so,
what's
So
so,
what's the point?
so-
Reassign time for the IEC chair, is that what we're talking about?
I think what we're working towards is,
Increasing that.
well, this group already agreed to increase it to 0.4. The issue is that Marjorie does not want that much time out of the
oh,
classroom.
that's what this is.
So we've talked about a few concepts, and we were trying to get together a group, including Sheila, so she could talk about how much workload this is. One of the suggestions from Marjorie was getting some summertime to, get a running head start. And other suggestions were having maybe a split model where, maybe somebody who's already on the committee can have some reassigned time too to work with Marjorie. We haven't come up with a best recommendation yet, but all that's been talked about and been on the table.
Okay.
Okay,
So talk to that one,
so
please.
we'll re-agendize for the next meeting? Or
Sure.
Okay, very good. Now, let's look through 6 through at least 15. And we've got
Yeah, 'cause
theoretically
you-
20 minutes left. And
You
we get
had
to
some
board meeting
important
night.
things, I think.
Yeah, so let's go to Apple. Let's just
Apple?
yeah.
7,
Okay.
So the question is, I know it's just to be, I'll say blunt. Okay, so where do we stand with Apple? Is Apple still functioning? Will Apple function in the fall? Does Apple have a cost? Will Apple have a cost center in the fall? If the purpose of Apple was professional development, now that we have this policy, then the need for Apple no longer exists.
So let me be Richard Nixon. Let me be clear about that. Is that what Richard Nixon said?
Yeah, he-
I'm getting punchy at this
He
point.
did say that.
Okay, I'm getting punchy at this point. Policy 6030. We need to come back to that question here. But policy 6030 stipulates clearly that we're going to have a professional development committee, that we are going to have a professional development coordinator, and that the goal will be for the committee and the coordinator to look at the EMP, the board goals, presence area plan, and go forth and develop professional learning in support of all of that. That being said, there's nothing in there that says it's going to be called the Academy for Professional Learning, Apple, or Commonwealth. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, we are committed to professional learning and professional development. We have a policy that we are going to get eventually approved by the board. We have a program, a director that we're going to be hired, and we have a committee that's going to begin to implement it. We also have a pot of money that at the moment, per Joe, will reside in Dr. Scott's cost center, or the educational or academic support cost center, whichever Dr. Scott's cost
We
center.
created a new cost center called Professional Development, and Dr. Scott is the budget administrator.
So the
You
money,
have pot and money?
the money, the pot, everything is there, okay? Because she's the responsible administrator at the moment. When the PD director is hired, management position, then that person will be the administrator of that cost center. We are in discussions with the incoming group about a percentage of money that would be set aside for conferences to make sure that faculty still have money towards professional learning through conference activities.
So that'll be separate than the PD?
No, there's one pot. There's one pot, but within that pot, 100,000, 200,000,
Right there.
50 cents, whatever it's going to be, we're going to say this out of that budget. We're allocating this amount of money to conferences, faculty conferences, so that people can apply to go to conferences.
So what happens with the Apple Cost Center?
The Apple Cost Center never really existed. The money was placed in the TLC.
Okay.
And Brock was the cost center manager. Pat knows this, right? Pat and Brock went through a lot this year trying to get the money allocated. So we had to give it to a manager. So now we're saying, okay, we're going to give it to Dr. Scott for the time being until our program director is hired, and then he or she will have that responsibility as a cost center manager. So that's kind of where it is. So
as of June 30th, all the Apple activities will cease. And
well,
July 1,
except
budget year?
I guess that would be great, right? The only thing, the new faculty institute, I guess, was never really part of Apple, so that's the only thing that would continue, unless Dr. Scott and members of the committee or somebody gets together and says, we really do need to do so and so, and then that would do it. But it's not Apple. It's professional learning, professional development for the campus under this model.
Right, because there's space allocated, there's an office, there are classrooms, some people have keys, some people don't.
Okay, well, so, and so the point is that all that will be worked out. Whether the space is there, it's still needed to be there or not is a question. Certainly, the classrooms, I'm loath to change or move because it costs so much to build and so much to wire and whatever. But I don't know. I mean, all that remains.
Is that the Classroom of the Future?
Yeah, Classroom of the Future.
Well, I'm putting classes in there because I need the FTE.
Yeah, she's putting.
So there's where it is.
We need the access for our students.
Yeah.
So where is the program director of the PD going to be located? In this building?
We haven't even talked about that.
We don't know yet. Now there's space over there, but that space could be used for other things. So yeah, they need an office. They would need an office. Really much off the cuff, off the top of my head, there'll be a director, there'll be some level of clerical support, and there needs to be a space to meet, a workspace, like a little conference room or something. And that needs to be somewhere, and it may be, so yeah, that remains to be seen.
So then all professional development activities beginning July 1st will go through the professional
development. When we say all that were tied to that, because the grants have their own.
But no, I understand.
Yes, yes, but that's correct. Directed through Dr. Scott and whatever system that we create at that point. In other words, whether the policies approved or then or not, we're going to act that way. Now, let me answer your policy, Dr. Kyoto, your question.
The new faculty orientation, where is that going to be out of?
That has always been out of Dr. Bell's or at the Vice President of Instruction's main cost center. But in my opinion, if I have anything to say about it, and as of July 2nd, I won't, per se. A lot of these conversations I'll be out of.
We will. Yeah.
We'll all be out. We'll go to dinner together. We'll have our own conversation.
There you go.
But the point is,
it won't have to be agendized or video recorded.
My recommendation, if anybody is interested at that point in my recommendation, would be to also move that over into the professional development, professional learning cost center as one of their key responsibilities as well.
I think it is already there, actually, in the policy, isn't it?
The new faculty orientation, I don't know. I mean,
in 60,
this is something Dr.
In
Bell and I
60,
would.
in 60,
Policy.
Yes. It is. It's
Yeah.
already
Yes,
there.
it would.
It's already-
Operationally, I've been the budget manager on it, but on the 60/30 it would roll.
Yeah, and that's probably
Where it should
logical.
be.
So since we're talking about 60/30, we would.
Let me explain how the problem with 60/30. It's not a problem. I'm sorry, is that your question? I didn't want to get it.
It's sort of.
Okay.
Sort of, because yesterday in the emails there was the reference this board subcommittee.
Yeah.
So then we're looking, and in this chart that we have, it's nowhere here. So it's like, where did that
Well,
board
because
come
that's a
from?
shared governance, not board committee.
Right, so we're trying to understand how.
Well,
How would we even know something like that?
So let me try to explain a couple of things. First of all, I have no idea. We re-engineered the college council process. I say I have no idea, and I should, because this is probably my fault. We re-engineered the college council concept 3-4 years ago. 40 down to 9 subcommittees, how a bill becomes a law, that whole thing, right? That's how we've been operating. Yet, for whatever reason, we never updated the board policy with that draft. So Crystal is working on that with the board policy. Now, the board, from the Brown Act point of view, the Board of Trustees is a Brown Act committee. All of the subcommittees of the Board of Trustees are Brown Act committees. There are 4 subcommittees. There is the Accreditation Board Policy Committee. There is the Budget and Finance Committee. There is the Legislative Committee. And there's the KPCC Committee. KPCC, which is the radio station. So each one of those 4 subcommittees has to operate under Brown Act regulations. Nobody knew that until Todd Galuba was here and did the Brown Act training. So now the board is saying, oops, we just can't call
what they were doing before was they were sending it by email to the subcommittee saying, hey, if everyone's okay with that.
Right. So now they have to
serial meeting.
Yeah.
So now they have to get together and meet. So where we are right now, Ryan has been working with Dr. Mann, trying to find a date to get the board members, the subcommittee together to meet on 60/30 and maybe 2 or 3 others that they've got that Crystal and Dr. Mann are working on.
Crystal's doing that meeting. I'm setting up the other.
Yeah, the government, exactly. Yeah, so Crystal's working with Dr. Mann to try to get that group going. Tonight on the board meeting, there is a drug and alcohol policy, right, Cynthia?
Yes.
And Cynthia had to get special dispensation from the governor. It's another one on there. Special dispensation to, I should say from the Pope. No, I won't say that. To get that item on the full board agenda prior to the subcommittee considering it. And that's because we're working with the U.S. Department of Education on some financial aid stuff, and we're trying to get our act cleaned up in that particular area. So Dr. Mann said, yes, you can go ahead and do that. So tonight, I know you'll be there. I think you'll be there tonight. You'll be there.
I'm going to be there.
Everybody, you'll be standing room only tonight. So tonight, when that comes up, I will introduce it. Dr. Mann will very clearly say the subcommittee has not met on this, but this is what it is. This is why it's important. We need to move this forward. So the idea on 60/30 and the other 2 that Crystal has is to get a meeting of the subcommittee going. They come together. They discuss 60/30. They're not going to argue with it, I'm sure. And then at the next board meeting, which is either
May 20th.
Well, not going to be May 20th, probably after tonight, because there's a meeting of the Pasadena Educational Foundation that night, and several board members need to attend it. So I think now it'll be deferred to June 3rd. But I'll tell you something. This is what I will say, and I know Dr. Verdeen would agree. We should act as if 60/30 is approved. There's no reason to believe the board's not going to approve it. So we should implement it. We should just move forward.
Gosh, can you do that?
Yeah, we can.
Oh.
We have in the past.
But I should say this. Is it absolutely appropriate that we do that? No. But on the short term, anyway, what are they going to do? In all seriousness, we have to do the business of the college, okay? Because a few board members' calendars can't jive, and they're in a mode that they don't want to make. They want to avoid every decision they possibly can until Dr. Verdeen is here. They've made their new choice.
Is that kind of really what this is kind of behind this?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But it's just that there's a lot of other stuff brewing right now.
So can you clarify? I had an understanding of the process, and now I don't. So just to help us understand the process. So when the Senate passes a policy, in order for that to be accepted by the board and actually become a policy, what's the step? So we pass it, now what?
Okay, so my response would be that if it's a shared governance item, your next step would be the college council,
Which is what happened.
right? And then the college council would approve it, and then it would be a recommendation of the superintendent president, and he or she would move it forward, which is exactly where we are right now on this.
Right.
So any policy that the academic senate passes, that's exactly.
And if it's not shared governance?
If
Then it comes here.
Then it comes here.
And then from here, do we just simply talk, or does it have to be a recommendation then from you?
If it's not shared governance and it doesn't pertain to the board, it's operational in manner, then we just do what we're going to do.
He's talking about suggested policies, though, like, let's say, curriculum, right?
Well, we just passed two. We have the one regarding office hours for distance education instructors.
Oh, well, those aren't policies, though.
Okay, but so
policies refers to those are recommendations from the Senate on.
So the no smoking policy.
Well, the no smoking might actually be
that
would be shared governance.
But let's stick with the DE thing and what your point real quick, because Julie's here, and you just mentioned office hours for distance education. That's a working condition. He did. I didn't. He did. And so on something that is a working condition or contractual, your next stop would be with Julie, or actually in consultation with Julie while it's working its way through your process, because at some point she'll either have to request an MOU between the district and the FA to enact a working condition change, or save it until the next negotiation, as an example.
Okay, all right.
On a working condition. But if it's a not a smoking policy, but it's just some other thing that you guys want to do that relates to curriculum or something, then it would come to Capm, and then we'd talk about the best way to.
Could you give me an example of that, a curriculum?
I don't know. Is there an example of that? I mean, if something came through.
There is one on curriculum that went through about the CNI, and the reassigned time that would go to those faculty members. It went through a while ago, a few months ago.
Through Capm, and then we just implemented it. Is that what you're saying? Or you went through college council?
Actually, it did go to college council, even though it was not governance.
So I think what we just really need to get clear, and somewhere Crystal's ears are ringing with happiness, is there's policies, which are those really shorter statements that the board has that are the real big picture. Now, no smoking across the entire campus would be an example of a policy. Then there's the administrative procedures, which are how do you make that happen. But then there's even things, lower than those overall procedures, such as, which I would refer to as maybe processes, like recommendations that don't need to be immortalized in procedures, that they're a level down. And then there's what we actually do, which I call practice. So that, the 4 Ps there. Okay. So this DE, if it weren't related to working condition, this probably wouldn't even reach procedure. This would probably just be something that would a process that would be talked about at Capm with your academic affairs folks here. But because it's a working condition, then that adds another layer.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so it's 4 minutes to 5.
He had other items, and I'd like to default to them. You had dental, and you also had kinesiology football coach position.
Yeah, so I think we can, let me skip the dental. Let me go directly. I can do this real quickly. So the dean's input. So this is related to what we spoke about, the faculty orientation. So whenever, I don't know when the deans are going to get together, when the deans are going to.
Every Wednesday, unless.
So have they come up with what they want the new faculty to know?
They looked at that curriculum that was given to us before, and they made some comments on it.
Okay.
And so they haven't commented on what was created since then, because they haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
So what we'll do then, I'll give you what the Senate approved on Monday. Give it to you. Pass it on to deans.
We're meeting on next Wednesday.
Right, and then they can tell. Then they can tell the coordinators, this is what we would like for you to please incorporate.
I think you said that they didn't like them entering.
Right, and I have not looked through them.
I gave my notes to Kathy because I facilitated the dialogue.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
I think they were mostly concerned about the mentor program.
That's right.
Yeah, they
So
were.
so the winter summer pay for hire. So we are going to have committees, hiring committees for the summer. The Senate, they approved that what they want to do is they want the chairs of each hiring committee to average out the hours. So here we are part of the committee. I'm going to give you my hours, she'll give you, and each one gives you the hours. You average out the hours of how long it took, and based on that, it's how many hours it took to go through the process.
To meet applications.
So this is, so we're informing you of what the decision was made and see whether or not now you're willing to accept it, not accept it, modify it, change it, etc. So you don't have to give us an answer. I just want to let you know what happened.
Okay, we got it.
And you can discuss that later. Yeah. Okay. So.
And by the way, can I just ask, is that paid at the $50 per hour stipend rate?
Well, Rod Foster then brought up a different thing, and they said that that needs to be discussed, that they want.
But I think that's the only rate we have to go by.
Exactly. So yeah, so if we do this, I would
No,
agree.
we also have our hourly pay rate of it.
So you guys need to figure that out. I don't know how many committees there might be going this summer.
There's at least 5.
Well, there's 2 dean
The number
committees.
just came out again.
Right.
What are the other ones?
Well, there's 4 coordinators. That'll probably the 4 coordinators. Now BSI, that's 5.
The banking.
The
and
banking, that's
finance.
6.
Coordinators?
Well, the new faculty coordinator, that's in the hiring committee, right?
No.
No, that's not hiring.
No, that's just people submitting.
But who?
No. He's talking about
Oh.
the professional development coordinator. There's
Right.
the supervisor and student bank. There are positions that are flown that normally have faculty on the committees.
Right.
So the reality is that to the extent that these are going to be advertised this summer, or I should say filled this summer, then we're going to have to deal with faculty compensation if you're not, people are not willing to volunteer their time.
Because I asked the faculty to send me the amount of hours they
Nobody
took.
volunteers their time, this is a job.
And that'd be worse. I said it just to see if I can get it right. Make sure Julie was paying attention.
The faculty sent me their hours, how long it took them to over this past couple of hiring committees, and it turned out, given the fact that it was online, it took them 5.4 per hour.
Yeah.
But then the Senate said, well, instead of going with that number, let's have each committee average out.
Some might be more straightforward than others.
That's
It
right.
might be easier,
Yeah.
more quick.
Okay,
Well,
so
the
that,
coordinator ones are only a page.
Right.
I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. So
That's why.
we just wanted to inform you of that.
Yeah.
Now, this next one, kinesiology football coach position. So this is the one we're having the problem right now. The faculty and hiring priorities committee created a list, and on the list was kinesiology. But
Right.
now we're seeing kinesiology/football coach. So the question is administration trying to throw in the football coach along with this one? Because all we did, we approved kinesiology.
You approve kinesiology. What this is we are recruiting a new football coach. And in the past, when I arrived, the football coach was hired when I arrived and was hired on a faculty contract. At the end of the first year, he was really evaluated on his effectiveness as a coach, even though he taught classes. So the second year, he started down the tenure track process. Okay. It's unfair to the faculty to have you get someone who now is tenured based upon that. So what we're doing is we're hiring someone as a kinesiology coach, the person being hired as a 1-year sub. Okay, so we're not intending for this person to grandfather into a tenure track process in the first year. The goal is working with human resources to create a professional experts classification. So we can have coaches who will be employed by the district in a separate classification than tenured or tenure track faculty. Because I think if I heard history correctly, we probably have about 4 or 5 individuals who are tenured faculty now in kinesiology who moved into the position under the same way that the most current football coach did.
So the question that brought up to me is this. We hire a kinesiology football coach. We created the position in kinesiology. So the individual is hired, he's teaching, coaching, then then that individual obtains tenure. But year 6, it's a terrible football team. Year 7 gets worse, and we just want to fire him from being a coach. So
Right.
is he fired from being a coach, or is you can't fire? Or
Right now, he's just.
No, and that's the problem. See, and
Full-time
what happens is
Right.
that people buy these. So there are 2 ways around this that districts have done over the years. One is exactly what Dr. Bell was talking about, that we come up with a classification for a professional expert that is not a tenure track faculty position. So he may teach or she may teach as an adjunct, but their job is to be a coach, and we pay them to be a coach. And then they can, you know, if they've got their minimum calls to teach, then they have an opportunity to teach as well. But they're not tenure track.
That's how LA.
That's how LA, that's how a lot of colleges do it. The other way that districts have done it, El Camino is an example of this, is they'll hire the faculty member and require them to be a coach for 4 years before they decide they're tired of it and they want to become. That's the other problem, where they get hired as a coach, but on a tenure track, but 3 or 4 years into or when they hit tenure, they decide, yeah, I don't want to coach anymore. So you bought another person. You bought him as a football coach, and next thing you know, 4 years later, he says, I got my tenure. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm tired of giving up my Saturday nights. And they do it. So that's how other colleges do it as well. But we have backdoored a number of coaches into full-time faculty positions by virtue of that. They were hired as coaches. They either didn't work out or they didn't want to be coaches. The next thing you know, we have them forever.
So, but I think Eduardo's original question is, what is posted as kinesiology football coach is not the same position as what was
It's
approved.
not the position that was approved.
So there's
That
your
is-
answer.
We're recruiting and in the process now of going to final interviews for kinesiology instructor.
Period.
100% kinesiology
So what you
instructor,
guys
period.
approved in the 36 hires is going through, this is something
Additional.
on the side.
This is in addition to.
Right.
Okay. Will this coach be teaching 5 classes?
No.
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 So primary responsibility will be coaching and just to throw a number, 70-30.
It's something like that.
Yeah,
We're
okay,
good.
right,
But
just- okay.
succinctly stated, what we want to do is be able to have the opportunity to remove someone from a coaching capacity, which is their primary engagement with the district, without having to interrupt
Right. Now,
their their track toward tenure.
Okay.
for the purposes of full disclosure, this year will be a 1-year temp assignment. Is that correct?
That's correct. It'll be a 1-year temp assignment with the goal being by the time that concludes, we've vetted the discussion openly about a professional expert classification and determine how we can place someone in that so that someone continue in the capacity of being a coach as their lead responsibility. Also have the ability to teach classes because most of our coaches teach the team sport class, for example, during the season, but not have them track toward tenure like the 36 we're hiring now to go through the normal tenure track process.
So
Is this the business faculty that is becoming kinesiology?
Business?
No.
No.
Business is business.
Was there a lateral transfer between business and kinesiology?
For that position, I believe it was, yeah. We're talking about
Was it open across the campus?
Yeah, this was
Daryl Taylor.
Daryl Taylor who went
It
in
was
fencing. No, I'm sorry, I don't know which this is.
I think it's Daryl Taylor, and don't quote me on this. I don't know if it was phone, but I don't believe it was.
Okay, are we allowed to do that?
Well, you're
I
right.
I was hoping that this was the same issue that's been brought to me,
Okay.
because I need to come talk to you about that then.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't discuss it here, but I need to come talk to you about
Right.
it,
Okay.
because it's causing issues.
About the business one, business kinesiology one. Okay, yeah,
A
those,
lateral transfer that was not open.
right, and I don't believe it was phone, but yeah, okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
That's separate
and,
than this
and that's wrong, right? It should not happen that way.
So
Okay.
if on the hiring list it was 36, this one be 30, this one will say 37?
Except it's a temporary, it's a full-time temp.
It's not a-
Right.
So it's not,
It's not a tenure track.
Right, so that kinesiology position that
It's a
was
tenure
approved,
That's 30,
That's-
that's part of
That's
36.
part of 36. That
this is
the-
not part of that.
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
This is a way to get a football coach next year.
And this
Okay,
coach is
thank
not intended to be tenure
Okay.
track.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you call it, I need you three for 2 minutes after this meeting.
Okay. You three being, which three?
Oh, okay.
Of those
Dr.
three.
Bell, Dr. Scott, me.
I'm free.
Okay,
All right.
so it's
Taken.
5:06, is there anything else?
I'll carry everything forward to the next, but there is one agenda item that we need to talk about, which is, do you guys want to meet in 2 weeks like we usually do?
Yes.
I'll be here.
So that would be,
20th?
Oh, that's when the board meeting would have been.
Yeah, so it's.
do we want to get off the cycle of the board?
Yes.
I mean, do we want to try for the
Please.
27th?
I won't be here, but go for it.
Well, if the board's not meeting, let's just go ahead and do that.
So we want to target
Yeah.
the 20th?
Yeah, because I won't be here on the 27th either.
And then we'll get off the board cycle
right after.
a different
Yeah.
month.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Julie?